All right, Milo, let's get to it. First, let's start with the Masters. We're a couple days removed from Rory McIlroy's first green jacket. You and I were texting all Sunday as we were watching this. What did you think about the broadcast?
I think I texted you something like, wow, I cannot believe I'm this emotionally invested in golf. I think CBS did a phenomenal job with the broadcast. The TV has just gotten better and better, the product over time. And I have to say, Austin, I love Jim Nance's decision towards the end of the broadcast to just let the moment speak for itself. That was sports television at its finest.
And the production truck. Let's give full credit to all the CBS producers there. Fantastic decision. Like you said, it really was letting the moment happen and unfold. Watching Rory McIlroy's emotions there for the win. I enjoyed Dottie Pepper. I enjoyed Trevor Immelman on the telecast. I mean, that's Sunday back nine. That was incredible drama. Rory was cruising, and then he blew it, and then there was the playoff. So if you were a sports fan, or even at the most casual level, you had to enjoy that. The numbers are kind of surprising because of that. I figured, first thing I thought was, man, this thing's going to get closer to 15 million viewers. It's going to be the best audience in around a decade. I thought for sure. The numbers were still really solid for CBS, just shy of 13 million viewers for the final round. It's the best Sunday for the Masters since 2018. That was when Patrick Reed won, but you had a loaded leaderboard there with Rory and Spieth and Fowler and some others. So very good for them, but I thought that it could have done a little better.
Austin, I said it in my newsletter on Monday. I am a casual golf viewer at best, but I was absolutely locked in. To be fair, I am a sports reporter. I should be locked in to a major event like the Masters, but I am a little surprised the number wasn't higher. But as you said, it is the best the Masters has done in years. It became mainstream sports.
We've talked about this for years. I mean, especially here at SPJ. Like, what is the PGA Tour going to do without Tiger when it doesn't have those spikes? So where can it go? It's the biggest event in golf every year. It's the biggest Sunday in golf every year, audience-wise. Is this the best they're going to be able to do? You had Rory, you had a playoff. It couldn't draw over 13 million viewers. Can it ever get to those Tiger numbers again? I don't know that they're going to be able to do it unless they develop some sort of really breakthrough star who just wins major after major like Tiger was able to do.
Austin, Tiger is not coming back in the same way he was. While he is still a superstar, you cannot rely on him to drive those same kind of numbers. Golf needs to figure out who their next star is.
Who's it going to be?
Maybe it's Charlie.
Oh, Charlie Woods. That's a good answer. I think it could be him. That could be the breakthrough kind of star. Jordan Spieth has been a needle mover in the past, but yeah, I think Charlie is a fantastic answer. If he comes up through the ranks, can crack through. If you saw him on the Sunday at a major, can you imagine you got Tiger sitting there? They're going back and forth between Charlie and Tiger, Charlie and Tiger. That would be drama-filled golf.
I think that would drive 15 million viewers.
Absolutely. All right, Maya, let's switch over to basketball. Let's start with the NBA. The regular season now behind us. We're at the end of the play-in tournament. Those first round matchups, they start this weekend. We'll get the final pairings after the last of the play-in games. But let's look back at the regular season numbers, particularly across ESPN, ABC, and TNT. A league-wide number, average of 1.5 million viewers there, down only 2%. They really came back in the second half of the season, down around 18% headed into the Christmas Day games, bounced back, got under 10 there. And then the trade deadline, that Luka move to the Lakers, also Jimmy Butler to the Warriors, kind of gave rocket fuel to some of these numbers. You saw some strong late audiences there for the NBA during the regular season. So down only 2%. It gives them a little momentum headed into the playoffs. But this number, though, is the lowest since the pandemic season. The last 3 seasons or so, you've been around 1.6 million viewers. So just a slower start for the NBA, but they were able to absolutely rebound once you got some better storylines there in the second half.
Listen, I'm old enough to remember when Jimmy Butler was playing for the Bulls. So, as my Chicago sports team. But no, what the NBA has done over the last couple weeks, months has been remarkable. As you said, down 19% around Christmas. Now they're only down 2%. As much controversy as there has been around the trades, it's been fantastic storytelling and television.
And we got some great matchups here in the first round. I mean, especially in the West Coast. I'm definitely going to need a nap there to get some of those games. But I want to watch Lakers T-Wolves. I think that's going to be a great matchup. So I want to see if the Thunder can actually continue to put together such a historically strong season. They're kind of young still. Can they make a run in the playoffs? I want to see if the Nuggets can actually hold this thing together. They fired their coach, they fired their GM, but Jokic is playing at an all-ever NBA player type level. On the Eastern Conference side, in a first-round matchup I want to watch, I want to see Pistons Knicks. I want to see if that young Pistons team, which hasn't made the playoffs in a long time, can give the Knicks a run for their money. Those are some of the matchups that I'm going to be paying attention to in the first round from an audience perspective.
I think the Pistons absolutely can. Do I think the Knicks take it? Absolutely. Is that my New York bias showing? Who knows? We're not going to talk about it.
What's your biggest matchup in round one?
Well, Austin, there's a lot of great matchups. You mentioned a bunch of them, but I am looking forward to Clippers Nuggets. I love watching Jokic. He's fun. I think he's going to be the MVP this year. And then I'm looking forward to that third game at Intuit Dome. It'll be the first time we see that.
That'll be interesting. Well, Molly, if you are NBA headquarters, I know one matchup that you want to see, just based on regular season numbers the last few seasons, this regular season included, and that's a potential Lakers-Warriors matchup. That would absolutely move the needle. That would be the most watched conference semifinal series that I can remember in a long time. Steph versus LeBron, you may never see that again in the playoffs. So if the NBA is lucky enough, maybe they can get that series, but good luck to both of those squads. Good luck to the Warriors trying to get past the Rockets. That's a solid Rockets team down there in Houston. All right, Molly, WNBA Draft, you were on the grounds in Manhattan. How was the event?
Fantastic. As everybody knows, I am a WNBA fan, but the event itself, I was at the draft last year as well. It's grown. Austin will get into the viewership, I'm sure. But being on the ground in Brooklyn last year and Manhattan this year, it felt almost double the size. I heard from a source that it's about 16 to 800 person capacity. It was sold out. It was one of the hardest tickets to get that night. Seeing the growth of the draft over the last few years, especially because up until last year, they hadn't been fans on site and since 2016, 2017. ESPN was there. They were ready for it. You had WNBA Countdown on site. You had ESPN's biggest talent around the W on the ground. And they treated it like a marquee property. And it showed.
I mean, it looked incredibly good. You had a really big name up top in Paige Beckers. I really didn't know any of the other players that were getting drafted. I'm sure I'm going to become familiar with a lot of them. I feel like I knew some more players in previous drafts. The big event field that you're talking about was kind of reflected in the numbers. Let's note that it did fall 49% from last year when you had Caitlin Clark, but everything that doesn't feature Caitlin Clark seems to fall by that amount, by 50%. We saw that with the NCAA Women's National Basketball Championship game. That fell by over 50%. So we know what Caitlin Clark is. She is the Tiger Woods of women's basketball. So putting that aside, this was still easily the second best WNBA draft in history. 1.25 million viewers. That is almost double what the previous number two was. It was like 600,000 viewers back in 2004. So incredibly impressive number here, what is able to draw. No WNBA draft was typically getting over 500,000 viewers. These things were getting 300, 400,000 viewers. A lot of them were relegated to ESPN2. So like you said, ESPN really investing in and making this a marquee property. And people should really note here that 1.25 million viewers for the WNBA draft, that's better than any MLB draft out there. Only one MLB draft has cracked 1 million viewers. And it's well above, almost double the best that ESPN has been able to get for the NHL draft. That includes the record 2 years ago set when Connor Bedard, another needle mover, was the number one overall pick.
Austin, I texted this to you, and I will say it again, and I'll say it publicly. I cannot wait for the general public to experience Paige Beckers in the same way they've experienced Caitlin Clark. This is a generational talent in the same way Caitlin Clark is, and I think for number one pick with Dallas, you've already seen the investment that Dallas is putting in her and the investment ESPN's putting and putting Dallas on many national broadcasts.
You know, we're going to be back here talking about that first Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark regular season audience.
Oh, yeah. No, something's coming. So to the casual basketball fan, look out for Paige Beckers.
All right, Molly, some quick hitters before we get to our interview with Chris Sims. The NHL regular season, that wraps up today. The regular season here in the United States probably going to finish down around 13%. You had some marquee teams that really weren't performing this season. I mean, looking at the original six, the 4 U.S. teams in that, we're talking about the Red Wings, the Rangers, the Bruins, and the Blackhawks. All of them are missing the playoffs. Another popular U.S. team, the Flyers, also not in the Stanley Cup playoffs. For Rogers Sportsnet, it's probably really big because you'll get some stronger Canadian numbers with more Canadian teams. But if you're the domestic partners here, TNT Sports and ESPN, that sucks not having those big name teams in there.
Yeah, Austin, think about those TV markets. That's Chicago, New York, Boston, Philly, that are not in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But what's most interesting to me is we've talked about the Four Nations and how successful that was, what a great television property that was, and the fact that the league has not been able to kind of maintain that momentum throughout the end of the season and into the postseason. It's pretty interesting.
All right, a little bit of soccer talk. I thought it was very interesting that El Clasico, that's the FC Barcelona Real Madrid matchup, that last regular season matchup for La Liga, which could determine the La Liga title, is actually going to be on ESPN, the cable net, for the first time in English language for ESPN since they acquired the rights to La Liga. They're right in the middle of an 8-year pact. So I want to see if this audience can actually deliver something on ESPN. Those La Liga games, the other ones that have gone on ABC, haven't really been that strong. It actually might be a good little look at what this summer's Club World Cup might be able to deliver audience-wise. You have similarly a lot of big European clubs coming over for that. Obviously, it's not on ESPN. That's going to be on TNT and streaming on DAZN for free. But I'm very much paying attention. That's on a May 11th matchup. Want to see what it gets on ESPN.
It's an interesting property. We've talked about this, Austin. Soccer is such a growing sport in the United States, men's, women's, all of it. And international soccer is an untapped potential. So having that game on ESPN, I'm also very much looking forward to seeing what that audience drives.
While the NFL draft is almost upon us, and on Monday, you talked to Shedeur Sanders for the SBJ Media newsletter. What did you learn from talking to him and his efforts with Overtime?
So Shedeur is one of the 3 NFL draft prospects that's going to be featured in Overtime's Draft House series. That's on YouTube. First episode dropped Monday. It'll be following Shedeur throughout his NFL draft journey, which is interesting because he also just recently said that he's not going to the draft. That announcement happened after my conversation with him. But I asked him about his overall media strategy in general. And when you grow up with such a prominent dad and such a prominent sports family, I asked him his strategy, and he had a one-word answer for me, and he said, brilliant.
Yep, that sounds like something coming from Dad. That sounds like something Deion Sanders would have said in his primetime days when he was still, well, he might still be saying that sort of thing. He's very brash. But I'm also interested to watch the other prospects on that program. Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State, who's the runner-up for the Heisman, and also Jackson Dart. This guy is, I think, a sleeper at the quarterback position. Very interested to see if some teams trade into the late part of the first round to take him. He's not one of these guys like Cam Ward or Shedeur that are mentioned in the top picks. I think he could be a later quarterback taken in that first round. Now, a lot of teams seem to be high on him.
All right, Austin, I got a New York-based question for you.
Uh-oh, hit me.
You are the Giants GM. Who is your pick at number 3?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't think Cam Ward's going to make it there. I think I would have taken a chance on Cam Ward. Giants definitely need a marquee quarterback, especially in that New York media market. As a Giants fan, I'm not running out and getting a Russell Wilson or a Jameis Winston jersey this season. That's just not going to cut it for me. Neither is a Tommy Cutlets jersey. So they do need quarterback help. I don't know if that happens at the top. I want to take best available. If Abdul Carter's there, the defensive player from Penn State, or Travis Hunter, the Heisman winner from Colorado, I want marquee talent there. That's who I'm looking for the Giants to take. And then getting back to Jackson Dart, if the Giants can maybe trade into the end of the first round, that would be a lot of intrigue. I think that would help the numbers. So let's see if that sort of thing happens and helps ESPN and NFL Network's numbers for round 1.
1 week to go. We'll see if you are a good GM or not.
1 week. All right, Molly, last item, a little piece of surprising news. Reese Davis is staying with ESPN, but the really surprising element to me is that Fox Sports made a pretty strong run at him to potentially host that Saturday morning kickoff show. Would that have been a good fit for Reese Davis?
I could see a fit for Reese at Fox Sports. Fox has already taken 2 of Game Day's big stars. You got Tom Rinaldi and Chris Felica over there now. But it does not surprise me that Reese is staying at ESPN. He's been there for 3 decades. He's a face of Game Day. It does not surprise me that ESPN really wanted to keep him.
They've shown they're going to pay to keep marquee talent like that, and especially when a property like Game Day had such a strong season. That first one, well, I think it's indicative of what ESPN has shown. They're going to pay the money to keep the marquee talent. They showed it with Stephen A. They've now kept Reese Davis. They like those big names staying on. And yeah, College Game Day performed incredibly well for them. It's incredibly popular during the fall. And I didn't think it could get more popular, but it did. When you brought on some of those new voices, those new interactions, getting a new sort of feel for College Game Day, Reese is going to be a long-term part of that. It is important that ESPN kept him.
Austin, have you ever been to a game day in person?
I have. I definitely came down to Georgia Tech campus, I think when I was a student, and I've also done it, in my time here at SBJ. It is one of the best experiences in college football. If anyone has not, they should definitely check that out.
I've never done it as media. I did it as a student as well, Northwestern Ohio State in 2013. Really great experience. 7 p.m. game, 7 a.m. game day.
I feel bad whenever it's all the way out in the West Coast, like those Washington State type games, or if they're at USC. Those folks, they have to get there in the middle of the night to start setting up, start camping out, but they're very loyal, and they always have students coming out super early.
Even in Chicago, that's Central Time, but alarms were going off 4 or 5 a.m., getting ready for game day.
Well, Molly, that means between you and me and our producers, Reginald Walker and ACY, we've done over 100 game day shows. So pretty impressive for our staff.
I am so glad that you and I can contribute to them.
All right, Molly, before we get to our interview with Chris Sims, we're looking at this week in sports media history. April 13th, 1980, the United States and its allies decided to boycott the Summer Olympics in Moscow in protest of the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. NBC had actually bid to air these summer games, wouldn't end up doing it. They didn't carry the 84 games. That was still on ABC. NBC would come back, air the 88 Seoul games, and they have been the rights holder for the summer games ever since. But this was a big loss. You got to figure it was a big loss for advertisers. Probably some pretty big numbers it would have been putting up there back in the day.
As you said, NBC has a long history with the Olympics. I think the advertisers are doing just fine. They have great partnerships with NBC, but it would have been interesting to see what happened in 1980.